Dozorca budzi, jak się usiedrze i nie śpi, wstawaj. Do pracy, do pracy, do pracy czas. Do pracy, do pracy, do pracy czas. Aha, aha. Wstawaj, wstawaj, wstawaj. Nad tobą
son personas que tienen que tener una formación en el área de la dramaturgia, porque es mi tema, en el área del cine, de la televisión, de la literatura.
Los intelectuales se pueden expresar sus tesis en audiovisual. Los abogados podrán a lo mejor un día en los juicios orales poner play y hacer una argumentación audiovisual. O sea, pienso que esto es como cuando salió la imprenta, ¿verdad?
El poder, los desafíos, los alcances y limitaciones de la televisión y los medios audiovisuales en nuestra vida contemporánea. En ese contexto surgen las escuelas de cine y comunicación audiovisual. Pero el realizador, ¿nace o se hace? Pregunta que buscan responder Ricardo Larraín, David Benavente, Roberto Paulsen y Santiago del Campo el domingo 21 de octubre a las 22:30 horas. Al medio de los medios, en RTV, televisión y cultura.
En Hojas de Hierba, y específicamente en el canto de mí mismo, o canto a mí mismo, dice: yo me celebro y me canto, y todo cuanto es mío también es tuyo, porque no hay un átomo de mi cuerpo que no te pertenezca. Indolente y ocioso convido mi alma, me dejo estar y miro un tallo de hierba de verano. Mi lengua, cada átomo de mi sangre, hechos con esta tierra, con este aire, nacido aquí, de padres cuyos padres nacieron aquí, lo mismo que sus padres. Yo ahora, a los 37 años de mi edad, y con salud perfecta, comienzo, y espero no cesar hasta mi muerte. Me aparto de las escuelas y de las sectas, las dejo atrás. Me sirvieron, no las olvido. Soy puerto para el bien y para el mal. Hablo sin cuidarme de riesgos. Naturaleza sin freno, con elemental energía. Este es un poema muy potente de un fundador de América. Y llama la atención en este poema esa euforia, esa celebración, esa felicidad del propio yo. Y es una celebración que incluye no solo el alma, que ha sido muy celebrada a través de los tiempos, sino que sobre todo cada átomo del cuerpo. Walt Whitman de alguna manera intenta sintetizar en su poesía la sabiduría que viene de Oriente y el pensamiento de Occidente. Juntar el cuerpo y el alma, que en Occidente hemos lamentablemente separado tantas veces. En este canto hay una celebración del cuerpo, de la mismidad, pero también hay un grito, que es el grito que un poeta nos hace para que logremos esa gran síntesis que nos lleve a la felicidad. Y para hablar de una posibilidad de acceder a ese estado de sanidad, de integridad de cuerpo, espíritu y mente, de estar sano con todo el cuerpo y con todo el alma, contamos hoy día con la presencia de alguien que ha dedicado su vida a preservar, a revitalizar y a traer a Occidente una medicina milenaria. Quiero agradecer a Darshan Shankar, director del Centro de Preservación de Medicina Tradicional de Bangalore, en India, su presencia aquí en esta belleza de pensar. Bienvenido a Chile.
Thank you very much.
Quisiera primero que me dijera qué sintió usted o qué piensa de este poema de Whitman, de este poeta occidental que parte y comienza su poesía haciendo esta autocelebración del cuerpo y del alma.
I think that he's talking about something very essential. It reminds me of the definition of health in Ayurveda. There is a word in Sanskrit, and the word is swasthya. That is the word which describes health. Swa means in oneself. Thya means to be established. And so the meaning of health is someone who is established in oneself. So I think that is the essence of what this poem is also talking about and celebrating.
Eso, muy interesante lo que usted está diciendo. Él lo dice poéticamente y esta medicina, la Ayurveda, lo ha hecho a través de una práctica y una ciencia milenaria. ¿Qué significa exactamente estar en sí mismo? Desde la tradición que usted ha conocido y que está cultivando y explicando.
To be established in oneself, one has to have some idea about what is the self. And you can see yourself as a physical being, as a biological being, and also as a spiritual being. And so, therefore, to be established in yourself, you have to achieve some kind of balance at the physical level, at the physiological level, the level of body senses, body tissues, the metabolism in the body, the balance in the excretory functions. All this is at the physical and biological level. And at the spiritual level, the mind should be able to be in balance with the soul, should be unified with the soul. In the Indian worldview, which informs Ayurveda, nature is not only the outer nature, the physical and the biological nature. That's only half of it. Or really, that's the external side of it. And then there is the other side of it, which is an internal side. And it is in that internal side that you have, starting with your own mind. The mind is part of your inner body. You can't see the mind. You can see the brain, you can see the body in the mirror, but you can't see your mind in the mirror. And yet it's there. So that's the inner part, and that is in fact the instrument to look into your inner self, the mind. And the ultimate, of course, in the inner self is your soul, the unmanifest aspect that is behind the manifestation.
Lo que llama la atención a mí como occidental de Latinoamérica, es que a pesar de que hemos hablado del espíritu en Occidente desde nuestros orígenes, desde los griegos, pasando por los romanos, por el mundo medieval cristiano, sin embargo, siempre hemos separado o hemos dejado el espíritu en un lugar y hemos cultivado el espíritu, lo cultivan los monjes, los místicos, pero por otro lado el cuerpo. Ha habido una escisión, una división, un abismo entre cuerpo y alma en Occidente que ha sido muy, muy fuerte, muy característica de nuestra manera de pensar y de hacer. Y me llama mucho la atención cómo al revés, por ejemplo en la India y en la medicina ayurveda, esto está integrado. Quizás sería interesante contar los orígenes. ¿De dónde viene el ayurveda? ¿Cuál es su historia? ¿Qué significa en primer lugar ayurveda? Y luego, ¿cuándo comienza y cuáles son sus raíces más profundas?
The word Ayurveda, Ayu means life and Veda means knowledge. And so the knowledge of life is the word Ayurveda. But the life that we talk about is both the outer life and the inner life.
¿Y cuándo históricamente comienza? He leído por ahí que hace 8.000 años en las montañas del Himalaya. ¿Cuál es el origen histórico de esta medicina tan ancestral y tan antigua?
I think the knowledge itself is said to be timeless. There is a word called Sanatan. Sanatan means timeless. But the first documented literature about Ayurveda would be placed at around 1500 BC. And it has its origins in the Vedas. And the Vedas are originally not written. They are revelations, you can call them some kinds of vibrations of nature that were felt by seers, and so they are also supposed to be timeless.
¿Cuál es la relación entre el Rig Veda y el Ayurveda? ¿O la relación?
Well, there are supposed to be 4 Vedas: Rig Veda, Sam Veda, Yajur Veda, and Athar Veda. And Ayurveda is related to Athar Veda, not so much to the Rig Veda. There would be some references, but the major references are in Athar Veda.
¿Y cuáles serían las referencias primeras que hay? Los primeros textos, ¿qué dicen?
I think they deal with the subject at various levels. On one hand, the very meaning of the word Ayurveda, as I have spoken of it earlier, is the knowledge of life. And there is a continuum, an existential continuum at which life is looked. The subtlest manifestation of life is the Atman or the soul. And the grossest manifestation of life is the earthy material, the solid state, which is symbolized by the earth. So from the earth to the soul, there is a continuum. And so we look at it in this fashion. Solid gets converted into liquid. Liquid gets converted into fire. Fire gets converted into the wind or a gaseous state. And then that gets converted into space. And then you have the mind, and then you have time, and then you have direction, and then you have the soul. So this is a 9-step.
¿Y cómo se relaciona el hombre, el ser humano, el microcosmos del ser humano, con ese macrocosmos que usted está describiendo? ¿Cómo se establece la relación entre los elementos del macrocosmos y los elementos del microcosmos humano?
Well, the sequence is supposed to be that you have matter, and matter gets converted into life, and a still higher stage of evolution is the mind. So matter, life, mind, and it's the mind which connects you then to the soul. That's the sequence.
Y nosotros somos el reflejo también de lo que ocurre en la naturaleza? Es decir, ¿es el hombre de alguna manera el reflejo de lo que ocurre en el viento, en el aire, en el fuego, en la relación con las estaciones?
Yes, of course, because the physical part of man is in fact made of the earth and the water and the fire and the wind and the space. These are the 5 states of nature that are present within us. We are composed of earth and water and fire and the wind and the space. Yes.
He leído que existen 3 elementos, tridosha, no sé cómo se puede traducir, en el ser humano, en nuestro cuerpo, que son el vata, el pita y el kapha. Quizás podría usted explicar en qué consisten esos 3 elementos de lo que está hecho nuestra materialidad.
Well, these are the terms that explain what is the role that the earth, the water, the fire, the wind, and the space play. The earth and the water are called kapha. These are the elements that are responsible for building up the body tissues. For all what in medical parlance you call the anabolic functions. The fire is responsible for the metabolic functions, and we refer to it as pitta. And the wind and the space, they are responsible for the neurological functions, for the motor functions. So all the movements in the body are caused by the wind and by space, and that is called vata. So the 5 elements are reduced to 3. Earth and water is kapha, fire is pitta, and wind and the space, that's vata.
Y tengo entendido que ustedes distinguen en la medicina de Ayurveda, distinguen 3 tipos corporales en relación a estos elementos. ¿Cuáles son esos 3 tipos y cómo puede uno distinguirlos? ¿Cómo los distingue el médico cuando ve un paciente, por ejemplo?
Well, there are external signs and symptoms about the proportion of these 5 states, or when you reduce them to 3, you can even talk in terms of the 3. So what is the proportion of earth and water and fire and wind and space in a body? How can you see that? And you can see that from the size of the body. So when you see a body which is tall and lean, then you know that the proportion of wind and space is higher in comparison with the proportion of earth and water. On the other hand, when you see a very heavy body, then you know that it's earth and water which is predominant. When you see a very restless person, like a butterfly, then wind is very predominant. So vata is very predominant. When you see a person who is very short-tempered, but also very sharp and very intelligent, then that fire element or pitta is dominant. The person who's slow and calm, then that's earth and water. He's slow to react. He doesn't get angry very easily. Then that is the earth and the water that is dominant. So you can see this through physical characteristics. You can see it through mental characteristics. And when we look at the physical and mental characteristics of a person, we can tell what is the predominance of kapha or vata or pitta. Now there is a certain natural proportion that is inherent in every person from the time of birth till he dies. and that is your natural balance. When that gets disturbed, then you get into ill health.
Si jugáramos un poco, ¿qué sería yo según esa clasificación? ¿A qué tipo pertenecería? Una mirada rápida, obvio.
As I look at you, it seems to me that fire is dominant.
¿Ya?
And then you have the wind and space, and then you have earth and water. But fire is the one that is dominant.
¿Qué significa que el fuego predomine? ¿Qué implica eso en la manera de ser de uno, de vivir o también de enfermarse? Por ejemplo,
Falling ill, for example, someone whose fire is dominant is likely to suffer from maybe hypertension, hyperacidity, liver disorders. Those are the kinds of typical disorders, gastric disorders. Those are the typical disorders of a person who's got fire as the dominant trait, because metabolism gets very easily disturbed.
y alguien en el que el agua es el...
Also, he will have very sharp intelligence.
Muchas gracias. ¿Quién el que predomina, por ejemplo, el agua? ¿Cuáles serían las características y cuáles serían las típicas sintomatologías?
He would suffer from diseases like diabetes, which are diseases of obesity. Those are the more likely kinds of disease. Diabetes is something that a person who's heavy would be prone to.
Sería interesante que usted me explicara, dentro de la tradición de Ayurveda, ¿qué significa estar enfermo para la medicina Ayurveda? La medicina occidental nos ha enseñado, nos ha dicho qué significa estar enfermo. Pero tengo la impresión de que desde la mirada de Ayurveda, ser enfermo significa otra cosa, o estar enfermo.
In Ayurveda, what it means to be sick is to lose one's balance. It may be the balance at the physiological level, or it may be at the mental level. So when your natural balance is lost, your equilibrium is lost, then that means that you are sick. Now, it's possible that when your physiological imbalance is lost, let us say when your metabolism is disturbed, in that environment, it's possible that from the Western medicine point of view, they may observe that certain organisms are multiplying in your system. They may be bacteria or virus or some other organism. So, but that is from that point of view. So far as we are concerned, we don't deal with organisms. We would be concerned with trying to restore the balance. As a consequence of that, the organisms may also not find a hospitable environment to live anymore, and they may also disappear. But we don't really deal with antibiotics. We're not trying to kill any organism. We're trying to restore a balance.
O sea, lo fundamental de esta terapia sería concentrar la atención en el sistema interno, por decirlo así, o en la estructura interna, ¿no es cierto?, del ser humano. ¿Y cuál es la relación entre las emociones y las enfermedades? Es un tema bastante presente hoy día y de moda en Occidente, revalorizar el papel de las emociones. ¿Qué ha descubierto la tradición que usted representa?
In fact, there are 6 kinds of emotions: anger, lust, greed, envy. There are 6 of these. We call them in Sanskrit the Shad Ripus. Shad means 6. These are the 6 kinds of things that are the cause of imbalance, emotional imbalance. anger, lust, greed, envy, the desire to possess what somebody else has,
¿Qué puede producir la envidia, por ejemplo,
ego.
al ego? ¿Qué puede producir la envidia somáticamente?
Well, what would happen with envy is that your mind is what gets agitated. And the disturbance in the mind is the predominant cause of disease. Diseases may be caused by internal causes or by external causes.
Claro.
Most of the time, it is by internal causes. An external cause, you may have a fall and break a bone or something. But most of the time, most of the diseases are due to internal causes, the internal environment. So when the internal environment gets disturbed, which could happen due to envy, then depending on your constitution, that means depending on the proportion of kapha, vata, pitta, one of these three will get disturbed. And you'll have a disease corresponding to that. You cannot have a prediction that envy will cause this or that in everybody. It depends on which body. If the body is dominant in vata, then envy will cause a different kind of a disease. The same envy will cause a different disease in a pitta, a different disease in a kapha.
Ah, entiendo. Yo entrevisté en este programa hace muchos años a un gran neurobiólogo chileno que vivía en Francia, Francisco Varela. Él falleció. Y él me dijo algo que me pareció muy interesante en relación al sistema inmunológico. Siempre en Occidente hemos tenido o usado la metáfora de las bacterias o los virus como enemigos y el cuerpo como un ejército que se defiende del ataque de un enemigo. Es decir, hemos usado metáforas militares para entender la mayoría de las enfermedades. Pero él me decía que, sin embargo, las últimas investigaciones que él estaba haciendo, que se estaban haciendo, digamos, en ciertos laboratorios donde se hace ciencia de punta, que había otra manera de entender esto y no entender el sistema inmunológico como un sistema puramente defensivo. Y lo conecto con lo que dijo usted antes. Me gustaría, ¿cuál es la visión que ustedes tienen del sistema inmunológico?
See, I think there can be a coexistence between virus, bacteria, parasites, and the human functions. If the proportion of these organisms increase, then it may manifest as some disease. It's very well known that someone can, for example, be carrying the tuberculosis bacilli and yet not show any symptoms of tuberculosis.
Yeah.
Or be the carrier of the malarial parasite and
O el
yet
SIDA,
not.
o el AIDS.
Yes. Yes. So therefore, it depends on the proportion of these organisms. When there is an internal imbalance, then the proportions change. And that's when you can have disease. So you can actually keep a body healthy through immunological approach. And this is a different concept then of health and disease. For example, malaria today is a worldwide problem. Western medicine is looking for anti-parasital drugs to destroy the malarial parasite. The problem with anti-parasital drugs is that after some time, the parasite develops resistance. And then you need a new drug. And so we keep changing these drugs. You can have another approach that if you improve the immunity of the world's population, then you don't have to worry about the parasite being present. You don't have to search for an anti-parasital drug. You can let the parasite be there, but increase and enhance the immunity.
¿Y
So
cómo mejora la inmunidad el Ayurveda?
well, to improve the immunity, you have to, basically live in unity with yourself. That is the definition of health. To be established in yourself. So it's a question of lifestyle, it's a question of diet. So if you are in harmony with yourself at the physical level, at the physiological level, if you are content in your senses, if your mind is at peace, then your immunity levels will be good.
¿Cuál es la relación y qué papel juega la meditación en la India hay prácticas milenarias y variadas, digamos, desde la meditación trascendental a otras, el yoga, etcétera? ¿Cómo eso se incorpora dentro de esta medicina?
When we see this self, what is the self? Then there is a physical, biological, and a spiritual self. And they're all interconnected. It is from the physical self that you have the biological self. It is inorganic matter that becomes organic matter. Organic matter transforms into life at a certain point. And life becomes very subtle and transforms into mind. Mind is life in a very subtle form. And so they're all connected. So meditation, in fact, the controller is in the mind. The controls are in the mind. The mind can control the physical body, the biological body. In contrary, we also have, if you have a physical pain, if you break a bone, it'll affect your mind because the pain affects your mind. So they're all connected. But the mind is a very powerful instrument. And so meditation is about the mind. And if your mind is at peace, if your mind is in balance, it will automatically improve your physiological functions, your biological functions, and therefore better health.
Según lo que yo estoy entendiendo, lo que usted me está diciendo, esta medicina necesita médicos muy comprometidos con el paciente. Desde luego médicos con tiempo, que no atiendan solo 5 minutos o 6 minutos a los pacientes, como ocurre hoy día en nuestras sociedades masivas, digamos. 5, 6, 10 minutos y ya viene otro paciente. Y también me imagino que el médico es mucho más que un simple curador de enfermedades. Tiene que tener una mirada global, completa del ser humano. Entonces, la pregunta es, ¿cuál es el tipo de médico de Ayurveda y qué diferencia tiene con el tipo de médico que predomina hoy día en Occidente?
A doctor of Ayurveda has to have a deeper understanding of life and nature, a deeper association, therefore, with his patients, and it is someone who has to have enough time. Of course, one can be efficient. One need not spend several hours. One can say important things in a shorter time because the times are such that time is at premium. So one does have to be efficient and economic with one's time. But nevertheless, the attitude towards the patient is got to be very different. It's only the patient who can actually heal himself. The doctor, the medicine, all the advice that he gives are only to help the patient to heal himself. The real healer lies within you.
De alguna manera se podría decir que el propio cuerpo humano es como el taller donde se puede el mismo enfermo sanar, donde están todos los elementos para sanar.
Yes, that's right.
¿Podría ilustrar eso con algún ejemplo? ¿Cómo nosotros dentro de nosotros mismos tenemos ya la medicina, que no es necesario traerla desde afuera a lo mejor?
You see, what is inside is also outside. And it's not a simplistic thing like this. Sometimes what is inside is become deficient. And then you need to supplement it. from outside. So it's not a problem to bring something from outside, but the desire to get well has to be within you. The doctor cannot heal you with external inputs alone. You cannot be a passive participant. The doctor has to make you more active, because the healer is within you. You will need sometimes external aid because there's something that has become deficient inside. Of course, there are situations where in cancers or in immunological compromised situations where the mind alone can help to heal. I mean, there are many cases that are reported where the doctors say, well, you don't have very much more time. And the patient says, no, I intend to live and I will live. And with his mental strength, he is able to heal himself.
¿Es cierto que el pensamiento o ciertas ideas pueden modificar moléculas del cuerpo?
I believe so.
O sea, que un pensamiento positivo podría producir una molécula positiva y un pensamiento negativo una molécula negativa.
Yeah, I mean, you're putting it in a very scientific way, the question. But when you see the connection between the mind and the body is, described in terms of molecules. So certainly the mind can influence the body. And when you say that at a very broad level, what you mean is that it can modify the molecules. Certainly it can do so.
Usted habló del cáncer. Es una enfermedad sobre la que se están en el último tiempo en medicina occidental aceptando puntos de vista distintos. Es casi una epidemia o pandemia en muchos lugares. En Occidente no sé cómo es en India, me imagino que también, ¿no?
Well, it's spreading, yes.
¿Cuál es la visión terapéutica o lo que ha aprendido la Ayurveda sobre el cáncer? ¿Qué podemos saber del cáncer desde la mirada de la Ayurveda?
Well, I can tell you about a particular case which I came across. This was a patient of leukemia, which is a form of blood cancer. And he came to an Ayurvedic physician for help. And he showed him all his papers, which were reports on his biochemical state, the kind of leukemia he had, and so on and so forth. And the Ayurvedic physician said, I don't understand biochemistry, so I don't want to see all those papers. Let me look at you in terms of your tridoshic imbalance. Let me see what kind of an imbalance has happened to your doshas. And he diagnosed him on the basis of that, then designed a treatment consisting of diet, drugs, meditation, which would restore the balance. And in this particular case, this patient survived for 5 years without any remission, and therefore was declared as cured. Now, the physician, when he was interviewed by someone just like you are talking to me, was asked, can you cure cancer? And the Ayurvedic physician said, I don't know what is cancer, because that is a Western medical description. But I am willing to look at any imbalance which you may call cancer or HIV/AIDS or something like that, and see from my tridoshic eyes what is the kind of imbalance. And so we are competent to diagnose. We can try to treat, and sometimes it may work. In this case, it did.
Aquí me vienen dos ideas de lo que usted me está diciendo. Una, que el médico, me da la impresión en la tradición de Ayurveda, es distinto que el médico en la tradición occidental. Nuestros médicos, que pueden ser muy buenos médicos, y es efectivo que la medicina occidental ha avanzado mucho y merece todo el respeto, sin embargo tiende a mirarnos como un cuerpo con síntomas y ataca ciertos síntomas a ciertas enfermedades. Pero nos olvida como seres humanos. Y el ser humano es un misterio. es algo mucho más que un cuerpo con síntomas. Tal vez el médico ayurveda es un médico, pero es también un conocedor del alma humana. ¿Cómo definirlo? ¿Cómo decirlo?
That's right. That is the word, Ayurveda, the knowledge of life. So an Ayurvedic physician looks at a being as a physical, biological, and a spiritual being, and sees the connection between all these three, and designs his intervention to tackle the problem at all these three levels, not only at the physical level, not only at the biological level, but ideally at all the three levels. And so drug, diet, lifestyle, prayer, meditation, yoga, all this can form part of the treatment package, because you're treating a being which is more than just a physical being.
Hay una mirada de la ciencia más como arte, el arte de sanar al otro. Y tengo la impresión que la medicina occidental ha privilegiado la ciencia como cúmulo de conocimientos sobre las enfermedades, descuidando a veces este arte de sanar.
The art of healing, yes. No, actually, there is a fundamental problem with the outlook of science. I mean, science is about the study of nature. But who is studying nature? This is man who is studying nature. And the contradiction here is that how does man, who is a part of nature, study nature itself? How does a part study the whole? This is the contradiction of science. And the answer to that is that a part can only look at another part. A part cannot see the whole. And so the outlook of science is always inherently fragmented. It has to be by the very nature and method of science. And the problem then is to make it whole. And so anybody who comes up with an integrated theory, a unified theory, will get a Nobel Prize. Because you have a problem of integration. Because you always have a differential, a fragmented look. In all Oriental sciences, we study nature by becoming one with it. You cannot study nature by being apart. So between the observer and the observed, you try to bring a unity. And the mind is the instrument that can do this bridging. It is your mind. Your senses will not bring you one with nature. It is your mind, when you attach to your soul, that you will become one with nature, and then you will see yourself. And that is a way to study nature. That is also scientific. But it's a higher science. It's a different kind of science. In the Western science, you use the mind only through the instrumentality of reason and intellect. But the mind is capable of much more.
Ahora, estaba pensando que para traer a Occidente y a la medicina occidental todo lo que nos enseña Oriente, se necesita una transformación cultural, de mentalidad, de concepción de la vida muy, muy grande. ¿Cómo poder lograr el equilibrio en la medicina occidental si no cambiamos nuestra visión del mundo? ¿Cuál es la experiencia suya trabajando con Occidente o trayendo Ayurveda a Occidente de una posible cooperación o diálogo entre estas dos maneras de ver la enfermedad y el ser humano?
I think the situation is changing, and the West is becoming receptive. The reason for this receptivity is that it is experiencing the limitations. Context of medicine, it is experiencing the limitation of Western medicine. We know today that there are many, many conditions, particularly those of a chronic nature, particularly ailments of a systemic disorder, that Western medicine cannot treat. And so it is experiencing this difficulty. And so it is looking for solutions elsewhere. So I think this is the right time to initiate dialogues. In fact, such dialogues were initiated almost a decade ago. You can see in the United States that they are spending in the National Institutes of Health a substantial amount of money for what they call complementary and alternative medicine. This happened about 10 years ago. So I think the receptivity is there. We need spokespeople, knowledgeable people from the Eastern systems to conduct this dialogue confidently. The problem is that in India, in China, in Chile, take Chile, you have a traditional system of medicine. There is so little known about it in your own society. It is neglected. The carriers of that tradition have today, because of neglect, got a very low self-esteem. They're not confident to engage in dialogue. It is a similar situation with traditional medicine, different maybe in degree, in the rest of the world, in Africa, in India, in Asia, in Japan, in China.
¿Usted podría contar alguna experiencia en que haya visto a la medicina ayurveda operando y colaborando con la medicina occidental? ¿Algún ejemplo en que haya resultado, en que se pueda ver así gráficamente?
I think there are several specific examples where Western medicine and traditional medicine have worked together and achieved good results. But they are limited examples, they are small examples, they are not happening on a very large scale. For example, in the treatment of cancers, in Bombay we have a modern hospital where they have combined Ayurvedic treatment for improving the immunity while they are conducting the conventional cancer treatment of chemotherapy. And the combination of that chemotherapy and the immunological treatment of Ayurveda gives much better results to the patient. So, but these are small examples that are there in different fields. You have that in diabetes, you have it in HIV/AIDS, that you have on one hand the antiretroviral treatment, but for treating the syndrome of different diseases that happen due to the compromise of immunity, it is traditional medicine that is doing the work. And the net result is that the patient is much more functional, although he still remains a carrier of the virus.
¿Cuáles son las relaciones brevemente y diferencias entre Ayurveda y la medicina china, que conocemos más acá? ¿Cuáles son? ¿Hay puntos de contacto? ¿Son opuestas? ¿Son distintas? ¿Cuál es la comparación entre esas dos tradiciones?
I think there's a great deal of similarity, and historically there has been a great deal of interaction. We sometimes don't know whether acupuncture originated in China or whether it originated in India. And it's not important now to find out where it originated. But the fact is that they have interacted. We don't use acupuncture needles, but we use acupressure points. And the points are similar to the points in Chinese medicine. I had been to China 4 or 5 years ago, and I was talking to an ophthalmologist of traditional Chinese medicine. And I was asking him, what are the books that you read on traditional Chinese ophthalmology? And he told me, reading out from the books, that in the Ming dynasty, which was in the 14th century, the emperor sent physicians from China to India. And the ophthalmology that is being practiced in China is based on what those physicians brought back to China. So historically, there has been a great deal of interaction between China and India. The yin-yang concept is very similar to a concept we have of Purush and Prakriti.
¿Qué significa?
These are the two opposites, the male and the female, the hot and the cold, the manifest and the unmanifest, the physical and biological world, the manifest, the spiritual world, the unmanifest, that is yin and yang, two sides of the coin. And so we have a lot of parallels. They also have 5 states of matter, and 3 of them are the same: earth, water, fire, wind. Then they talk of metal, whereas we talk of space. So, but there is similarity. In the martial arts, we have similarity. Yeah? So there is a lot of similarity in Asia.
Qué interesante esta relación. No había pensado entre la medicina china y la medicina de Ayurveda. Y para ir cerrando, quería preguntarle, nosotros partimos con un poema de Whitman, en que invita a celebrar el yo mismo, acceder a ese estado de felicidad. Yo sé que no hay fórmulas para la felicidad, pero tal vez pueden haber pistas para alguien que nos está escuchando, que a lo mejor está enfermo o está deprimido. Hay mucha enfermedad mental, por ejemplo, en esta ciudad de Santiago de Chile, mucha depresión. Es un país con altos índices de problemas de salud psíquica. ¿Cuál sería el mensaje de Ayurveda que usted podría enviar brevemente?
I think that the source of happiness lies within every one of us. It's within us.